Hey everyone, welcome back to the Psychedelic Cherry. Today I'm doing a Q&A on guitar pedals, gear, garage rock, and myself, so stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Psychedelic Cherry. Today I'm doing a Q&A. I know I haven't been making a ton of videos lately. Got a lot going on, but thanks for sticking with me. So today I'm going to answer all sorts of questions about guitar pedals and gear and the chain you should put your gear in, and as well as some personal questions I've received and some music related questions I've received. So without any further ado, let's get started. Carla Carrasco, hello Carla, asks, my question is there an efficient way to power a full pedal board like 12 plus pieces of varying draws, or in general do people just swap out pedals all the time? For me, I'd ideally like a master pedal board where I don't have to repatch the pedals every time I want a different configuration. Okay, so you're definitely on to something with mentioning that the different power draws here. What I would recommend doing, if you're a pedal freak, which you clearly sound like you are, like me, I would recommend you take two varying input power supplies similar to Temple Audio Design's Voodoo Lab 2. And fix those to the bottom of your power rack or piece of wood or whatever it is you're using, and utilize those. So that way you're only eventually using two power outlets. And then I would recommend getting yourself your own power cord surge protector. I think Fender makes a really good one. I used to own one until I left it at a gig that we had to leave in a hurry, and never got it back. Essentially, the Voodoo Lab 2 has different power supplies for pedals that require different power voltages. So I would recommend doing that. I think that's the best way to go, is just have two separate sources. I think that's a lot better than just having to swap constantly. But if you're someone who doesn't necessarily use all of your pedals all of the time, I do think swapping is a good way to go. All right, on to the next. Let's see. Matt Rendon says, hi Matt, do you foresee a time where there's a backlash and players return to direct into their amps? No. I don't. I think we all would love to not have to lug around a giant case of pedals. And I know that there are some players who choose to do just that. But I think that ultimately you can only get the tone you want, 70% of the way there before you really want to start playing with your sound. And I think pedals are just too tempting and too delicious to deny ourselves. They are here to stay, and I think that maybe the boutique craze will die down a little bit, but no, that world's never gonna happen, Matt. I'm sorry. C. Thomas Warmouth says, what's your favorite? I'm going to assume he's talking about pedals, actually. Different pedals do different things, but I think it would be a toss between my Boss Space Echo, which is just amazing. I utilize it so much, and it can do far more than I even utilize it to do. But it makes this most amazing, spacey, crazy, like psych surf tones you could ask for. So I definitely love that pedal. And then as far as vintage clones that I've made and worked with. I think it's possibly the Maestro fuzz. The first one I made was for Sean Gospel, and I've even made one for John Dwyer. But I really love the fuzz tone in it. It's kind of got that can't get no satisfaction vibe to it. It also borderline synthy kind of fuzz, and I really, really love that. I'm also really big on the tone bender and the Mosrite Fuzzrite. So those are my favorites, I think. Okay, next. Brian Lee Harris says, name brands important or homemade knockoff just as good? Is the magic in the gear or in the ear of the beholder? Fingers of the knob twister. Oh, / fingers of the knob twister. Okay. Name brands, not important. And here's why. Name brand almost certainly will be slightly better. They'll take you from 90% to 100%. However, the cost difference is drastic, and most of the time really not going to do enough to your sound to be worth that cost, in my opinion. But I buy cheap guitars and make my own pedals, so you could expect that that would be my opinion. Now that said, if money is no object to you and you really want a particular sound, buy the right guitar, the right amp, and the right pedals. All right. All right. Jay Langdon asks, are you religious? Nope, not in the least. Not my bag, sir. Not my bag. Okay, so next we got Michael Torge. Mike says, delay, flanger, distortion, chorus, wah, loop station, and volume. What order should they be on my pedal board? So the two categories we're looking at here are the order of the pedal versus the order of the signal chain. So your pedals can be in whatever order you like them. It's a jigsaw puzzle, so just make them fit in a way you can access the foot switch. But as far as signal chain, which is what I think you're asking about, it generally goes something like this. So you're first going to start with any sort of filtering device. That's your wah pedal, your EQ. I wouldn't include envelope filters personally, because I consider that kind of more on the like phaser flanger side of things. But volume pedals, wah pedals, EQ pedals, these are things that are going to shape the sound before you even really distort or change the sound. And those are the things you want first. Now, some people might choose to put the EQ pedal after your distortions and overdrives, and that's because that's just the sound they like. So you can play with that a little bit. But in general, I think put your volume control first if you got one, then your wah, then your EQ, and then we move on to the second group. And the second group is your distortions and your octave pedals and your overdrive and your fuzz. Anything that is vintage or boutique might be exceptions to this, simply because sometimes they're powered differently. Sometimes they are true bypass and sometimes they're not. So if you're using some sort of really specialty handmade pedal, I recommend trying it out in its rightful position. But if you're getting any sort of signal problems, any jitters and pops and things like that, then go ahead and try actually moving that towards the end of your line. But standard layout would be start out with your filters and then move to your distortions and overdrives and fuzz. After that, you want to run your signal into things like chorus and flanger, anything that's going to manipulate the signal in a more extreme way, but still doesn't have much to do with timing. Now I'm aware that flangers and things, vibrato, etc., are technically working with timing, but all I mean is we're not talking about your looping or your delay yet. And of course, after that, you want to put your reverb, your delay, your space echo, whatever it is that you're really manipulating timing with. And you mentioned having a looping pedal. I would definitely put that at the very, very end. Now, there's also an issue of some Boss pedals really need to be set to their true bypass setting to work well in your signal chain, and others really just belong at the end of your line, and that's because some Boss pedals utilize their own specialty power voltages, etc. I'm misspeaking already, so I don't want to get too far into that, but just know that there's always exceptions to every rule and every guideline, and Boss pedals can be that exception more often than not when it comes to your pedal board. So, to summarize for you, Mike, I would go with a volume, then your wah, then your distortion, then your chorus, then your flanger, then your delay, and then your looping station. Hope that helps. All right, so that's the end of my first Q&A. However, I did go ahead and film a second Q&A because I got so many questions from you all. And I actually have enough questions for a third Q&A, so maybe I'll get around to filming that. But expect another Q&A answering a lot of your questions coming very, very soon. Hopefully I answered everything adequately, and if not, go ahead and leave a comment below if you have any more questions or if I didn't clarify my answers well enough. And don't forget that YouTube no longer lets you know about my videos just because you're a subscriber. Now you have to click that little bell next to the subscribe button, or it won't show you when I make new videos. I've noticed that a lot of you haven't seen my more recent videos, and that's probably why. So don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell, and yeah, share with your friends. Thanks. I'm May McDonough. This has been the Psychedelic Cherry Q&A.